I always tell you, what money do we have to give you?
Well, on the other hand,
That's right.
everybody got
It's okay.
everybody got a chance. Everybody got a chance. Yeah. I was thinking about that. But you know why I don't want to do that? Upstate, no,
We can talk about that.
upstate down.
I have some more that are like very robust.
Yeah. Because they come in the same car.
You give away to be fair. Yes, that's why I carry it with me. I got like the rest of the year going, oh my God.
No,
No, I didn't say I got hot over here until you started fair.
I'm leaving here at 12 o'clock.
You know, you get to a certain age, you're fair.
Nobody's here to stop it.
Yes.
Maybe has the testimony here, just a little bit closer, that way it will be easier to hear him on the record.
Okay.
Next, New York City Controller Scott Stringer.
I know, thank you.
Just wanted you to remember who you are.
Well, thank you, Chairman Farrell and and Senate Republican colleagues, Democrats, Republicans. First of all, I want to lay aside my remarks and just simply say, based on the mayor's impressive performance today, a 4-hour marathon,
5 hours.
I think that he gets everything he asked for. So, so let me try to fill in some of the mayor's talking points, and it really is great to be here because I really do welcome the chance to speak to you today about the governor's proposed executive budget. And as someone who served in the legislature for 13 years, I understand that this is not the beginning, not the end. This is actually the beginning of a conversation we're going to have for many, many months. And I want to thank everybody for sitting through this very long hearing. And I look forward to working with all of you to advance a budget that is equitable and sound. The governor's proposed budget makes a number of critical investments in both human and physical infrastructure that will lay the foundation for continued economic growth across the state. So first, I stand with the governor in supporting an increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Raising the minimum wage is one of the most effective tools we have to attack income inequality and will place our state firmly back in a leadership role on this vital issue. As my office has found, a phased-in $15 minimum wage would put an additional $10.2 billion into the pockets of 1.46 million workers in New York City alone. That's real money that can help provide working families a pathway to the middle class so that they can pay for college, make a car payment, or just put food on the table. Likewise, I strongly support the governor's proposal for a permanent extension of the Earned Income Tax Credit to non-custodial parents. Since 2012, the EITC has pulled 70,000 New York City households out of poverty, and in 2014, it returned some $4.1 billion to New Yorkers, an average of over $2,300 per tax filer. That's called making work pay. And I would argue and urge this legislature to go even further by doubling New York City's EITC, expanding eligibility to childless workers, and lowering the age floor to 21. In addition to raising wages for low-income New Yorkers, I support the governor's push for paid family leave. According to a survey by my office, 80% of New Yorkers support a paid family leave system funded by a small employee payroll deduction, such as the Paid Family Leave Insurance Act, which passed the Assembly last year. Governor Cuomo has also issued a series of proposals that support New York's historic legacy as a land of immigrants. From certifying new visa applications for more immigrant victims of crime to making the task force to combat worker exploitation permanent, we will continue to show that New York is open to all. Finally, the proposed budget makes key investments to aid one of our most vulnerable groups, our homeless population. Last night, 58,000 city residents, including 23,000 children, slept in our homeless shelters, with thousands more choosing to sleep on our streets. In December, my office completed an audit that found more than half of shelter units for children and families were plagued by peeling paint, roaches, rats, and the chill from broken windows. Earlier this month, we analyzed every single building housing homeless families with children, from shelters and hotels to so-called scatter site housing. We found that 2/3 of sites had unaddressed violations that threaten life, health, and the safety of residents. This is our invisible city, and we will continue to shine a light on these conditions and demand change. That's why we welcome the governor's increased support for combating homelessness, and we look forward to seeing improvements as we continue to monitor shelters in New York City, just as State Controller Tom DiNapoli and Buffalo Controller Mark Schroeder do the same in other parts of the state. We may not be able to fix homelessness in a day, but we can ensure that our shelters are safe, clean, and livable, and that's what we intend to do. At the same time, we must also do more to address the underlying cause of homelessness, including the lack of affordable housing in our communities. For decades, the New York City Housing Authority has been a bastion of affordability throughout the 5 boroughs. But despite the fact that NYCHA is home to over 400,000 New Yorkers, it has a capital shortfall of $17 billion. That's why today I am renewing a call I made 2 years ago to create a new dedicated revenue stream for NYCHA using surplus funds from the Battery Park City Authority. Battery Park City generates a surplus every year. As part of a settlement agreement between the city and the state, a portion of those dollars have been directed to affordable housing and other city capital needs since 2010. We now have an opportunity to direct those dollars explicitly towards NYCHA, our largest source of affordable housing. I know there is support in the legislature for this idea, but we could do this without legislation. Under the terms of the existing settlement agreement, all that is required is a unanimous vote by the mayor, the governor, and the city controller, and I vote yes. I hope that you could help us in talking to our mayor and governor to get this done. NYCHA residents shouldn't have to wait any longer for roofs to be fixed, mold to be eradicated, and doors to be secured. We should make this happen this year. This excess money would total more than $400 million over 10 years and provide the first new source of reoccurring revenue for NYCHA in years. That is our way of saying we can find new sources of revenue. We don't only have to be reliant on what has always been. Now, recent discussions concerning CUNY and Medicaid have raised the prospect of efficiencies in each system. I'm pleased that Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio have been discussing these vital programs and have committed to making no cuts. Funding CUNY is essential. We should be investing more in higher education if we truly want to keep New York a global center of commerce and innovation. No place represents those aspirations better than CUNY, where 3/4 of undergrads come out of New York City public schools, 42% of the first generation of their families to attend college, and where 1/4 of students are African American, 29% are Latino, and 19% are Asian. These are the future leaders of our city and our state, and they deserve our support. In recent years, CUNY has faced a number of challenges, from rapidly rising enrollment to annual tuition increases. In addition, their appropriation from Albany has not kept pace with the state's own operating budget. An analysis by my office shows if aid to CUNY had grown at the same rate as the state's operating budget over the last 7 years, the system would have an additional $637 million on hand today. Colleges and universities play a key role in making New York City a vibrant place to live and work. We should be doubling down on the economic engine of CUNY. We also need to recognize that CUNY staff are the lifeblood of these institutions, and unlike most other state workers, have been without a contract for 5 years. We need to put CUNY on a solid, sustainable path forward Because when we invest in higher education, we win. When we invest in students, we win. And when we invest in teachers, we definitely win. And I think we should now work towards that issue in this coming budget cycle. Now, I recognize as a former legislator that budgets are fluid, and I have been assured that negotiations are progressing between the city and the state over Medicaid efficiencies. But I want to make it clear, our Medicaid system covers 1 out of every 3 New Yorkers, many of whom have no health care at all if not for this system. Any shifting of costs has to be examined through the prism of these patients. If New York City had to pay for all the growth in its Medicaid costs, it could add up to $300 million for FY17. It would climb to $735 million by FY 2020. These additional burdens come at a time when the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation is already facing significant financial challenges. As my office found in our Holes in the Safety Net report, NYC Health and Hospitals treated over 430,000 uninsured patients in 2014. That included many undocumented residents who were ineligible for Medicaid coverage or subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Mayor de Blasio has acted fast. He has recently announced plans for a broad restructuring of HHC, and in the meantime has dedicated over $300 million in dedicated funds to keep the system door open to all. Reducing state Medicaid support will make it that much harder for the mayor to continue his efforts to put health and hospitals on a stable path. These hospitals are vital pieces of our safety net, and they deserve to be protected. And finally, I want to address the Star C bond financing. In 2003, the state helped the city, then in the grips of a post-9/11 recession, by assuming the remaining Municipal Assistance Corporation bonds, the bonds that helped New York City emerge from the fiscal crisis. Ultimately, the city issued so-called Star C bonds to pay off the MAC debt. In 2014, the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget and my office, the Controller's Office, we worked together and took the opportunity to refinance the Star C credit with lower interest rates. That allowed the city to achieve savings of over $600 million, money that was reinvested to support vital city services. This was one of the many fiscally wise decisions made by the city in the aftermath of the Great Recession to refinance debt at lower interest rates. Cities and localities should be encouraged to refinance their debt when opportunities arise. However, the proposed budget does the opposite. By diverting $600 million of savings from the city to the state over the next 3 state fiscal years, it sends the wrong message to localities. If you do the right thing, if you think strategically, if you come up with a plan and you invest wisely, you work with the controller, treasurer, city manager, mayor, however your government structure is, the first thing that's going to happen is you become a victim of your own success. I urge you to leave our funding alone in this regard. I look forward to the successful resolution of these budgetary issues, as well as other critical pieces of the governor's budget. And that includes an extension of mayoral control, which I support. Mayors need to be held responsible for the performance of our schools, so we need to give them the tools required to get the job done. It's all part of rebuilding the foundation of New York City. It's easy to forget that just 40 years ago, the city faced the prospect of a crippling financial crisis, a burgeoning drug epidemic, and a rapidly declining population. Many believed that we were in a downward spiral that would culminate in the death of the great American city. In the years that followed, however, something truly amazing happened. The public and private sectors came together to invest in New York's future, pumping billions of dollars into infrastructure. We laid the foundation for the city's economic revival, and today we've got over 4 million private sector jobs, the most ever, record tourism and tax receipts, and a diverse, growing population. And that's good for all of us, because as goes the city, goes the state. But believing in the inevitability of New York's rise today is as foolhardy as believing in our demise 40 years ago. In the past few months alone, we've seen plenty of storm clouds. A slowdown in China's economy that sent oil and commodity prices crashing down while raising the risks of a worldwide economic slump. A 7% drop in the S&P 500 index since the beginning of the year, a fresh reminder that the city's finance industry generates approximately 15% of its tax revenue. Jobs have been cut at the Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Citi, Barclays, and Deutsche Bank. We also must continue to wrestle with some of our most intractable problems: homelessness, affordable housing, and true wage stagnation. But that's the historic opportunity before us today. Thanks to a brighter economic outlook, we now have a chance to attack those tougher long-term challenges. For years now, we've had to scramble from one crisis to another: 9/11, the Great Recession, Hurricane Sandy. New York always comes back, but now we as a city and a state have a chance to really pay down our principal and get at the root of our toughest long-term challenges. We can house the homeless, we can educate every child, we can create good jobs at good salaries, and we can make sure that New York City continues to be the economic engine that powers the Empire State. To do that, we need to come together as a city and a state and invest in our futures, because when we do that, we all win. You see, it's not about upstate and downstate. You have yours, I want mine. This is about a partnership. And for many of us who represent the 8.5 million people in the city, we are here today to tell you, especially those of you not from New York City, that we do respect the partnership. We do respect the give and take. We do respect your priorities. We just ask you to respect ours as well. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and it truly is great to be back with many of you I've known, and of course, Chairman Farrell with you always. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Assemblyman Benedetto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Comptroller, welcome to Albany. Thank you for your patience as well.
I enjoyed every minute of it.
I'm sure you did.
I know I have issues.
The mayor, throughout his comments here today, continually stressed that yes, we're going to have a surplus here of money. We're going to put them into reserves for the bad times in the future. And towards the end of your comments here, you kind of recognize that the future is not always bright. You care to comment on the mayor's proposal? The mayor's building up of some reserves, and is the mayor putting aside enough for the future?
You know, some of you may think that we have too much of a cushion. I would argue with the mayor that we have to actually put more away. We should put away, we should look at putting away 12 to 18% in terms of our budget outlays. We have to get the cushion up more. And I'll tell you why. You know, after 9/11, any cushion we had was wiped out. Hurricane Sandy, wiped out. This is such a unique city, and it's so massive and big that it may seem like a lot of cushion, but it's really not. So I think that to protect our city and our state, we need more of a cushion. I think we're about 1.6 billion short. Obviously, you know, as controller, I have a certain perspective on the fiscal end. The mayor is grappling with a lot of what he has to do budgetarily and his different priorities. And so we also will have a give and take between the city council and the mayor on some of these budget priorities.
Thank you very much for your honesty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Comptroller Stringer. It's good to see you again. As you may recall, because it was so long ago, we did serve together in the State Assembly, so it's always great to see you.
We served together on the Housing Committee.
That's true.
And I want to congratulate you on your new role. You were always great on the committee, and I always knew that when you voted yes, I had to vote no, and we both keep coming back here, so it's great to meet you.
Some things never change. So I'd like to call on my colleague, Senator Marchione, who has some questions.
Yeah. Who shows up and what they have to say.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry. Hi. Do you run in the city of New York youth programs where you hire youth in the summer?
Yes.
And can you tell me how many youth you hire?
I don't have that available to me right now. I don't do the hiring, you know, as controller, I do the oversight, but the city has many programs that hire young people.
So you have a budget then for those youth?
Well, there would be a budget line, yes.
And you don't know what that budget line is?
I didn't bring that information with me.
Okay. I'd like to know that. You're proposing a $15 an hour minimum wage. Are you prepared to pay the youth in the city of New York $15 an hour? Do you have those monies in the budget to pay youth $15 an hour? And do you have an age, that you hire throughout the city?
I don't think we've gotten that far. We're phasing in the $15 minimum wage, but it certainly would be a great goal so that when young people, whatever their age, spend time at a summer job, that they can actually get a real wage. Maybe they can put some of that money away to buy school books or pay for a lunch while they're going to class.
Well, I'm not saying that the money wouldn't be good for them. What I'm asking is, have you prepared to put those monies in? Because even though it's going to be phased in, you're going to face it if it gets passed this July. And you're phasing in New York City much faster than what we're phasing in upstate.
I believe that we should ensure that people can earn a livable wage, and $15 an hour is a reasonable wage for the city of New York. We did a study, because I know people last year asked me this question, and I know you're going to ask me again, but I cannot tell you how much a minimum wage increase of $15 would mean to the New York City economy. We would pump $10 billion into communities all over the city. The economic engine that would create, not just benefiting individuals, but benefiting our local business community, making sure that people have the extra dollars to go into stores, go into restaurants, support local businesses, I think would be a pretty important aspect of our economic strategy.
But you still have to have it in the budget, no matter how well it's going to be spent throughout the city. You still have to have it. I can't pay something I don't have in my pocket. If I'm a small business, you don't have it, you can't pay it either. Could you look into your budget and let me know whether you have increased your youth budget, how many youth you do have, and whether you're preparing
We'll certainly get
for a
back to you.
$15 an hour?
Certainly get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. But Assemblywoman Analia Dacos, I have to read it.
Every time he says my name, it's just different.
Hi, Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Controller, for being here and being patient. I just had two quick questions. You recently came to my district to do a couple of hearings, one on Sandy oversight. You had initially, before the hearing, had issued a report that about $17 million were paid to consultants, and that there was a lot of waste in the system. There were also some double billing to some of the contractors, or consultants rather. I just wanted to get an update on what your findings were and what improvements have been made at the city level to try to make this more efficient and streamlined.
We did this audit two ways. We actually held hearings, I think you were there, in each of the impacted areas of Sandy, not just on Staten Island, but throughout the city. And we took testimony from New Yorkers in every part of the area, South Brooklyn, Coney Island, and it was amazing to me that people were coming to our hearings testifying to the fact that their paperwork, financial documents had been lost. And we heard this over and over again, if you remember. We couldn't quite understand how you could come to build it back and just have paperwork lost, no social, no intake person that followed your case, all the basic issues. So we launched our audit while we were having these hearings. And at the conclusion, we said Build It Back was an unmitigated disaster. Thousands of people got hurt in the process. The paperwork was lost because basically at the first hint of trouble, meaning a hurricane coming, the city's response was, go hire the consultants, go hire PMG, go hire Solex, go hire URS, and they will take care of everything. They will set up the computer system, which they didn't. They will set up a way for people to engage, Build It Back. That never happened. And so basically, the only people who benefited from setting this up were the actual consultants. Mm-hmm. It was truly a scandal, and I think it's a lesson to all big cities that we have to build out. The lesson is we have to build out OEM and emergency services for the disasters that will definitely come our way. And we have been too lax because we think we can hire consultants to get us out of the next big storm or the next attack. And what our audit showed was that can't happen. I will tell you, while we haven't gone back and audited, we are monitoring Sandy and the Build-A-Back. And while you can look at a better, a better process, I still think we can't account for thousands of people. And until we can account for thousands of people, Staten Island, Coney Island, throughout our city, Lower Manhattan, then I think we are not whole. And I will not say that we are doing better. The other thing we also did, we just finished an audit that you'd be interested, I know, Diane, you'll be interested in this, that even though we were told that NYCHA was coming up with a plan so that the next disaster they would be ready for, I went in and audited NYCHA. There's no plan. If God forbid something happened, it would be just like the same. And so I know you're shocked at this, but we should also look at our different agencies and make sure that they're actually creating emergency plans that are realistic. I can tell you, and I'll send this to you if you want, our NYCHA audit showed that we're no better today with NYCHA's planning process than we were on the day the storm hit.
The other question I had is regarding to your red tape commission. You also came to Staten Island and also in Brooklyn, and all the boroughs actually, and listened to the concerns of the small business community. It seems the small businesses are sort of being hit at every level, whether it's city, the state, or federal. Some of the policies coming out of City Hall, I believe, are hurting the small business community in the city. What were some of the results of that red tape commission, and what recommendations have you made to the city council and the administration to make changes?
So we're looking at, so this commission, as you said, we've had hearings in all 5 boroughs, and it's not just the controller staff doing this. We've actually put together a very good blue ribbon commission of people with varied backgrounds, taking a look at many of the agency relationships with small businesses, fines and fees and taxes, and the well-documented history of businesses opening, politicians rushing to the ribbon cutting, and then the next day the agencies start coming in. You have a fruit fly in the vodka bottle, we're going to shut you down for 3 days. There's an ant on the floor 2 blocks away, it must have been you, we're going to find you. I'm making light of this, but everybody's talked to small business owners. I think we've lost sight of the fact that many small business owners open their business with their life savings. They can't just go to Citibank and say, I need $1 million loan. Most people can't get that. So they save and save, work 3 jobs to have their entrepreneurial dream, and the day they open, it's not market forces very often that determine their economic success. It's the sheer brunt of the agencies that determine their future. So the Red Tape Commission, we are looking at all of these agencies, looking at it in a critical way. I don't want to announce the findings today, but I think this is going to be one of those bipartisan moments, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, that I hope that we can generate a real consensus that we need to take a sledgehammer to the bureaucracy that is just dragging down so many mom and pop stores and killing the entrepreneurial spirit of our millennials, the next generation. All they want to do is create, and they have a whole set of problems in terms of office space and dealing with connectivity and those issues.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you doing this commission. When are the findings going to be announced?
I'm hoping in the spring, but we're working on the report now, and it's a collaborative effort. So we're working with all the commission members. We also have an online survey. So in addition to the hearings we held, we actually have reached out to hundreds of businesses with an online survey, which is gathering more data. And actually, I should make a pitch to get you the link, because we certainly would want to hear from more people on Staten Island. So maybe I can set that up, and we can also show you what we're asking the questions.
Absolutely. Any way we can help or talk to the chambers of commerce locally, let us know.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you, yes. Senator Kruger.
Hello, Mr. Controller. Nice to
Senator.
see you up here instead of in our island of Manhattan.
And nice to see you there.
Thank you. So in your testimony, where I don't really have any disagreements, just one clarification.
Yeah.
You're proposing the Battery Park city money be dedicated to NYCHA, and you estimate 400 million over 10 years, so we'll say 40 million a year. I agree NYCHA desperately needs the money. But what won't we be spending it on instead? Because what do we use it for now?
It would take away, or should they take away, but it would redirect money from other housing programs and earmark it to NYCHA. And basically, there's a big pot of money for other housing subsidy programs and capital monies, and they tend to do okay, especially capital. But everyone has talked about helping NYCHA, but no one's willing to direct monies to actually help NYCHA. And I think this would be a way of us saying that we are going to find a new revenue stream. We've never had one in modern history or that I'm aware of. And I believe the city can certainly make up the difference of any existing program. I've come here to tell you our finances are strong. I'm not afraid to say that. This is our one shot where we could take Battery Park City money and put a marker down on NYCHA.
And last year when you testified, you, I guess, had just recently released or were about to release something you called the Fair Share Report, and you went into some details about the state's declining commitment to New York City with its budget monies. Is there anything that has changed since that time other than the new proposals in the governor's budget that would decline monies even more?
We made the point that, when you lose AIM and you lose other programs that we used to have in New York City, whether it's the commuter tax or AIM, that we're not doing well. And considering that we're sending so much more to the state than we're getting back, I think one of the things, when you stay at a hearing for 4 hours and you listen much of the time, the one takeaway I've had, I did do that, the one takeaway I had through this is that someone asked a question and said, well, New York City had the benefit of a program in the 1970s or in the 1990s, let's say, and that program never expired. And that's true. And I was listening, but then I wanted to scream out, but there are other programs that we did lose, and some were more beneficial to the city economically than others. Commuter tax is a wonderful example of the billions and billions of dollars that we used to rely on, that simply disappeared in a midnight deal that we never got back. So, yes, we certainly have gotten funding from the state. We thank you. We know that this doesn't happen easily, but we've also lost money through the budget process as well. And so I just ask you to take that into consideration. I'll resend you that report for your deliberations, because it's something I probably should have brought back this year, just so you can see.
I found it online while we were listening to the 4.5 hours with Mayor de Blasio. So thank you. And
we've all had a lot of time to...
We did. We had a lot of time to do research and listen to each other.
Very good hearing, Senator.
Because that report showed that the city received $1.2 billion less in state revenue in fiscal year 2014 compared to 2009, and the yearly decline from $12.1 billion to $10.9 billion between 2009 and 2014. These are fiscal years. The state's operating funds grew by almost 16%, but contributions to the city continued to be reduced.
Right.
And so you show that the city would have had an additional $3.1 billion to meet its expenses in fiscal year, I guess, 2014, if we hadn't been reducing state funds to the city so much. So I appreciated having that on the record, because I did want to go on the record that some people seem to believe New York City is taking more money than historically it has, or is actually using more state money than it's actually contributing to the state. And I know that your work has shown that that's not true.
Nothing is farther from the truth. We have always paid a whole lot more. And, I would argue that we're actually happy to do it, because we recognize a strong New York State is also good for New York City. And so when we can be helpful, we don't expect money in, money back. When we come here, it's because we have specific needs that you don't want to create a tipping point in New York City, because it limits our ability to help the state financially.
I agree with you, and I think to repeat what I think Senator Marchione said earlier, we are one state, and we all rise or fall together. So I do agree that the city actually has been a significant contributor to the upstate economy, and I just didn't want today to end without reflecting the facts.
And let's put it on the record today. I mean, Senator Moynihan, rest in peace, but you know what we've given to Washington that we don't get back. And maybe Congress will finally recognize that we can't carry the country and carry the state.
And you talked about the CUNY issues within your testimony. Did I miss your touching on education funding? In the past, we've spent so much time talking about fair funding through the CFE lawsuit decision, which of course would affect the entire state. Where are we in that realm at this point?
Well,